Welcome to the PaynePoints Podcast. We tell the stories of small businesses, the people that run them, and the journey they are on. Our purpose is to gather a new perspective on starting, growing, maturing, and maintaining businesses of all sizes. So grab that cup of coffee, sit back, and join us as we start the conversation. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Sarah, and joining me today in the co-host seat is producer Megan.
Hello, it's me.
We have a very special guest today. Her name is Alexis McDaniel. Hello, Alexis.
Hi guys, how are y'all?
Good, good. Alexis works at the BioLab Piercing Studio down in Houston, Texas. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, longtime listeners may know we have kind of a certain format, and we're kind of going to change it up today, trying out something a little new, spice it up for you guys, make it a little more interesting. The podcast is going to be in three different segments today, and Alexis, you get to be our guinea pig, so congratulations.
Oh, yay.
I actually think that this format is going to work really well with Alexis. We've kind of been acquaintances for a few months. We know a little bit about each other, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get started. And why don't you tell everybody, so you work at a piercing studio as a piercer. But before we get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit about like what your family life is like or where you grew up and stuff like that. So we can get to know you a little bit.
I actually grew up in a small town a little bit north of here called Lumberton, Texas. And I moved over here shortly after I graduated from high school by myself to go to college. And then my mom and my dad separated. My mom got remarried and moved up here as well. So she's kind of like my neighbor. She lives like a block away from me right now.
That's awesome.
So I see her all the time. And I've lived in Houston now for about 8 years, and it was a huge change compared to like the small country life that I was used to.
Right. Lumberton is kind of small.
Oh, you've been there.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I've lived in Texas most of my life, so, or driven through it or whatever. So are you married? Do you have a significant other, children, pets? What's that looking like? No?
I do have a pet. I have one dog. He lives with my mom. He's a registered service animal. His name is Osiris.
Oh,
and he is this giant ball of husky cuddle bug. He just loves snuggles. I got him shortly after Hurricane Harvey, and then 2 years ago, my mom had some issues with some nerve damage. So now he takes care of her whenever my dad's not home and whenever I'm not able to.
That's cool.
That's great.
Did you get to like have to send him to like a special training school for that, or did he have like sort of a natural?
He was trained whenever we got him. Actually,
Oh,
the family that had him before us had sent him through training for one of their daughters that was struggling with autism, and they couldn't take him into their new home after Harvey because it's considered an aggressive breed apparently. So they were giving him away for free. So I made the big drive to go and get him. And it was the best decision that I have ever made in my life because he is the best dog I've ever had.
I'm so glad. Is he kind of like a mascot for you?
Yes.
That's great.
Did you, kind of straying away from that, I'm really curious. How did you get into the piercing business? Is that something that you wanted to like be when you grew up?
So not necessarily. Whenever I was younger, I think the job that appealed to me most was like a crime scene investigator, just to see like all of the cool things that they get to experience throughout the day and stuff like that. But 3 years ago, I had a friend that was going to have a kid, and I was the front desk receptionist at the tattoo shop that she worked at part-time. And she knew that I had a little bit of background history in piercing. I'd been getting them since I was a young child. My dad had a studio, so I kind of grew up around the environment. And one day she approached me whenever I came in, and she was like, hey, I really want you to replace me when I have my kid. I only trust you. And so I was kind of like almost pressured into doing it. But like, after all of that was done, honestly, this is the best career I've ever had. And I don't think now I could see myself doing anything else, because right before I took this position, I was actually a teacher for Paul Mitchell. And so, like, I quit my job doing that to take this full time. And I honestly think that it was the best decision I've ever made.
That's incredible.
It's fun. Yeah. I like it when things kind of serendipitously fall into people's laps, because it's such a, like, they didn't plan for it, but then it happened and it's working out, you know?
Yeah,
You said that you moved from Lumberton to Houston to go to college. What college did you go to, and what did you study while you were in school?
So I've been to school technically 3 times. The first time I went to school, it was actually at Paul Mitchell, and it was to get my cosmetology license.
Okay.
I was in that program for about a year and a half. And then 2 weeks after I graduated from that program was whenever I went back to their campus to get my teaching certificate. And I taught for them for a while. And then somewhere in the back of my brain, I was like, let's go to school to get a degree in fine arts. So I did. And granted, I don't really use that degree now, but I really wanted to get a degree in fine arts just because I love anything art-based, painting, drawing, photography, abstract art. So it was just something that I wanted to do with no real, I guess, drive behind it.
Wow.
Just something that was interesting to study.
I love
Absolutely.
that. So you've always kind of been in cosmetics and the arts then?
Yes.
I mean, I would say cosmetology and like piercing or working in a tattoo shop is kind of a one-off. Like, they're kind of, you're changing your appearance or you're enhancing or doing things. So it's kind of, I feel like you probably stayed kind of in the same vein there. Just, bounced from either side of the street.
Absolutely.
So working in a tattoo shop, or is it a tattoo shop? Is it just piercing? Like, do you guys just do piercing?
We technically own it. We're owned by the same company. There's Texas BioLab and Texas Body Art. They started off as one independent structure, but they slowly started noticing that their lobby was being taken over by people waiting on body piercings. So the owner, Johnny Jackson, actually separated the 2 establishments, but they're still technically together because there's a door in between the 2 buildings, so customers can travel back and forth between the establishments. So technically, at the moment in time, we are a standalone piercing studio.
That's cool. That doesn't usually happen. So
for those of you
it doesn't.
Who don't know, the PaynePoints recording studio is in a tattoo shop. So in case you didn't know, the fun little fact about our podcast. So we feel right at home with Alexis talking to her. That's really cool. That's really neat. What was the process in being able to be a piercer? Because your friend asked you, she trusted you, you were already working in that environment. What was that like for you?
So usually whenever you are interested in doing something like tattooing or piercing, you first have to seek out a mentor that's willing to obviously teach you the trade. In the state of Texas, there's not a school or a college for people that want to pierce or tattoo. So really you have to have your own drive to find that person for you. You have to think about things like, is this person reputable? Do they actually know what they're doing? And then you have to make sure that they're willing to take you on. Sometimes people will require you to pay them, sometimes they won't. And I was very lucky in the fact that I did not have to pay my mentor. Usually the process for learning those things takes years and years, but I unfortunately had to have a crash course in piercing because shortly after I started, the lady that taught me went into labor while I was piercing.
Oh my goodness.
About 2 weeks in, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, and she came back a couple of months later and finished teaching me, and then I moved on.
That's incredible. That's also a really fun story to tell at parties, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was a little shocked. I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I stop what I'm doing? Do I help you? Do I help them? What do I do?
Yeah.
How many piercings do you have personally?
Oh, Lord. We're going to go with 27.
Okay,
I know
perfect.
It's an odd number. I know it's over 22, so I'm going to say 27. I don't count them.
Perfect. Love it.
Is that pretty common for piercers to have? Did you practice on yourselves, and so that's why you have so many?
So I actually have a lot just because I use it as like an alternative form of, I guess, like emotional comfort. Whenever I was younger, I struggled pretty hard with my emotional state and things like that. So I would get piercings or tattoos. I've done 4 of my piercings on my own, but as far as like piercers having tattoos or piercings, I've met piercers that have 0 piercings and 0 tattoos. I've met tattoo artists that have more piercings than they do tattoos. So I would say that it's honestly just like about the personality of the artist themselves, whether or not they decorate themselves in this manner, or if they hold themselves to we'll say like a higher professional standard, I guess, of someone that wants to be more of a white collar piercer, someone that doesn't have tattoos and piercings. But for me, I feel like if I have tattoos and piercings, the people that sit down in my chair and on a day-to-day basis, they're going to feel more comfortable with me. And I can also share my experience about what, how it felt, how my healing process was and things like that, to maybe kind of calm their nerves down whenever they're sitting in my chair.
Yeah. I would think that, obviously, if it were me, I would want the person who's doing the service to also have had the same thing done to them, so that they have that same that hey, this is what's going to happen. I can prepare you because I've done it myself, and then the person feels a little bit more at ease. If you went to somebody, I know that there are people that exist that are tattoo artists that don't have any tattoos, and they do amazing work, but at the same time you just kind of go,
but why?
How did you manage that?
Why?
So I think that's great. The kind of job you have, there's unique hours that are, can be associated where you work more afternoons and evenings and things like that. So what kind of habits do you do on a daily or weekly basis that kind of sets you up for success or having a positive frame of mind, or things that some people have a ritual every day that they do. So if that's something like familiar to you, or if you do something completely different, why don't you share? Because maybe we can learn some tidbits for our own routines.
How to set up the day positively.
Feel like I don't really have like a daily routine, because every day starts different for me. I try to live like by the line, like one day happens at a time. So take that day by the reins and just grab it. So like the most important thing for me to make sure that I have a good day is I obviously need to surround myself with positive people. So all of my friends that I have are super supportive, and I see them every day. So like before I go to work, I go see my friends. They own a company that's right up front of my apartment complex, basically in my front yard. So I go up there before work, we have lunch together, and then I leave and head to work. And while I'm on my way to work, I put on like my favorite album of the day or something, and I just like shamelessly belt out songs in my car at red lights while people watch me dance and sing at the top of my lungs and probably think I'm crazy. But I guess that would be like my daily routine as far as like getting myself pumped and ready for the day. And then like once I arrive at the shop, I clean everything. Like I'll clean the chair, I'll clean the mayo tray, I'll clean my counter, I'll make sure all my supplies is set up and full. And then I'll like talk to the other piercer that's on duty to kind of make sure that I have a sense of the flow of what's been going on throughout the day. If we've been getting more piercings or jewelry changes and things like that, to kind of help set my brain up to process what's going on around me.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think what you said about surrounding yourself with people who are supportive and or positive people makes a huge difference, because you are who you are around. You are the sum kind of those people to some extent, because if you surround yourself with negative people, then you're going to tend to skew towards the negative, or if you surround yourself with cheerful people. So I think that's a huge thing right then, right there, just to get a good day going off.
We've had a couple other business owners, especially young business owners, mentioning that is a big part of how they are able to set up a positive and successful day. We had a young man from here in Lufkin. He owns a snow cone shop, and that was something that he talked about. While his friends were slacking off or going and partying or whatever, he was working on his business, and he eventually ended up surrounding himself with more like-minded folk who were supportive of the fact that he was a young man running a business. So I think that's a really good piece of advice to give people, is surround yourself with positivity and cheerfulness.
In that vein, with that in mind, is there a particular person or is there a particular thing that inspires you to kind of help you stay in that positive mind frame? Is there any shout outs you want to give or?
So all of my friends that work at like Express Skins, Waifu Hunters, and Senpai Squad, I think would be like my biggest support group. The owners of Express Skin, Sophia and Ed, are probably two of my closest friends, and they've become closer friends to me over the last year because they kind of helped me market my brand whenever I took my car to them and had my vehicle wrapped in something that I love. They put my logo on the car and everything else. And they've just been so incredibly supportive. Like anytime I walk into the shop and they see that, I'm not smiling or cheerful, they always ask me, what can we do to make your day better? And then Kim, the owner of Senpai Squad, is just like, this kid is crazy. He's also a young business owner and he is wild. He owns this company. He works by himself. He works extremely long hours. He'll like skip meals and things like that. But he always knows how to make people smile. And like one day he and I were hanging out. I was doing his hair and I don't remember the conversation that was said. But he said something and I was like, what are you going to do? Fight me? You and what army? And he was like, the BTS army. That's who. And so like it really made me laugh and smile because he also understands what it's like to own your own company, because I do own my own brand. So, having friends that can joke with you and improve your mood, that's honestly, like, I think the best thing for me.
That's great.
Perfect. What kind of hobbies do you have outside of running your business, that help you unwind?
I love K-pop.
Oh, yeah.
I listen to K-pop. I go to concerts. I do cup sleeve events. I do all sorts of K-pop related things. So K-pop would be like my biggest hobby. I collect albums. I collect light sticks, photo cards, random merchandise, and things like that. And I think my other hobby would probably be cars. I really like modifying vehicles and things like that. I kind of grew up in that area as well because my dad, whenever I was much younger as a child, had an auto shop.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of grew up around vehicles and it just kind of trailed into my adult life. So those would be, I think, my two biggest hobbies. And then trying new food. Like I will once a week go to a random restaurant I've never heard of and just sit down and eat things that I didn't think I would ever eat.
That's really cool. That could be a whole brand or like blog in it of itself.
What are some of your current favorites that you could mention to us? I know they're all local to probably Houston, but still.
They are. So one of the restaurants that I tried recently, it's over in Chinatown off of Corporate, and it's called, don't knock me if I butcher the pronunciation of this. I think it's called Tokei. It's Toukei. And it's more of like a small eats lounge type of vibe. Whenever you walk into the door, the atmosphere is just really awesome. It almost like kind of radiates like a downtown Japanese like hotspot eatery. They serve ramen. They have like little finger foods, like Japanese street style food and things like that. And then they also have like adult beverages that are also amazing. But I just like the atmosphere itself. They have some gorgeous artwork on the wall as well that looks like it was painted by a local Houston graffiti artist or something. But that right now I think would be my absolute favorite place to eat. And then another one, like if the Asian cuisine isn't your style, would probably be like a more common one, which is like Hank's. They serve like crawfish and stuff like that. There's one in Deer Park, Texas. So I'm a big crawfish connoisseur.
Love that.
Very cool.
All right. Are you guys ready for our new segment? I came up with this one all on my own. It's called Rapid Fire. And so, Alexis, we are going to rapid fire ask you several personal questions about yourself. And just as fast as you can, answer each one, and it's going to give the listeners a chance to know a little bit more about you than they might have before.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
All right. What did you have for breakfast?
I haven't eaten breakfast this morning.
Okay, great. How do you take your coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
What is your favorite song right now?
My favorite song right now is probably I'm One by APs.
Great. Are you currently watching a TV show? And if so, which show?
Yes, I just started Demon Slayer last night. It's awesome.
It is incredible. I agree. What is your favorite book of all time?
My favorite book of all time is Define Normal, but I can't remember who the author is.
Perfect. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
My favorite flavor of ice cream is praline pecan.
Coke or Pepsi?
Ooh, Pepsi.
Sweet or salty?
Sweet, definitely sweet.
The beach or the mountains?
The beach.
What is your zodiac sign?
I'm a Scorpio.
Love it. Spring, summer, fall, or winter?
Fall all the way.
Introvert or extrovert?
I'm an introverted extrovert.
Perfect. Your favorite color?
My favorite color is teal.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes, between two buns.
And what is your favorite social media platform?
Instagram, without a doubt.
What is the favorite piercing that you have on yourself?
My favorite piercing that I have on myself is my gestrum. So it's an upper lip piercing that's very similar to a vertical labrae.
Okay, and if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Tokyo, Japan.
We are the same person. We should be best friends. All right, that was fun. This is like our first time doing this format, and I feel like it's going super well.
And she really never hesitated. She was just like, boom, yeah, that's the answer. The Coke and Pepsi was the one that tripped her up.
Yes.
That was because I don't really drink either one, and I'm like, do I want to feel the burn, or do I want to feel not the burn? So I was like, we're going to go not the burn because it's early in the morning.
Right? I totally agree. Well, thank you so much for the rapid fire bonus round. I hope that we can get more questions in the future. Guys, if you're listening and you have suggestions for rapid fire questions, let us know in the comments or in a review or in an email.
Definitely. I want to switch over to talking more about your brand and working in the piercing industry. You said that while you work in a shop, you have your own brand. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with that and how you developed it and all the things that entails.
So one of the things that I really focused on whenever I was like first starting to think of becoming a professional piercer full time was how not only myself but other clients that I had in the past were made to feel when they sat in the chair, whether it be to get their hair done or to get a piercing or tattoo. And I kind of wanted to change kind of like how the stigma around like piercers and tattoo artists being harsh and very cold was. So when I created my brand, which is Piercing Panda, I really wanted to make it a completely different experience for other people. And for some reason, like, I guess it's just because I've had that experience where I've sat in a chair at a piercing studio and I was so uncomfortable because the piercer never talked to me. They didn't walk me through what was happening. They just, okay, are you ready? Here we go. Bam.
Yeah.
It made me think about like, technically what we do is considered to be a customer service. Yes, we are providing some type of body modification, but we're really in the same industry as people who do things like serve food or cut hair. So having a conversation and establishing that personal connection with the person sitting in your chair, I feel like is extremely important. Not only can it make them feel more comfortable with the situation that's going on, but it can also make the experience a lot more memorable. So when the people sit down in my chair, the first thing that I focus on isn't necessarily the piercing that they're about to receive. It's them as a person. Mm-hmm. I ask them how their day is going. I ask them what they had for breakfast or lunch, depending on what time of the day I'm seeing them. And then I kind of like evaluate, like, I guess, like what they're wearing and things like that to try and like find a question like, oh, where did you get your shoes? Or I see my favorite thing to do is find K-pop stands in the wild, and I'll see that one person that's got like a tiny little Shuki keychain, and I'm like, I see you like BTS. Who's your favorite member? So like my brand is really built around trying to make people feel comfortable the moment they sit down in that chair. That way the experience of being pierced isn't a scary one, it's a fun one.
I see that comment a lot from people that, because you touched on it, people sit down in a tattoo chair or a piercing chair and the artist is rather cold or clinical about it and doesn't really speak to them. And when one of the things that, I heard a lot as office manager for and studio manager for our tattoo shop here was, you guys are actually friendly and you talk to us, I've not had that experience in some places. And so I feel like that's very important, because you're about to do something to someone's body, and, that creates a somewhat, if you let it creates a slight intimacy of, hey, we shared this experience. I helped you achieve this thing, and, let's converse over it. And I feel like, I think that's filling a gap where, and hopefully the industry is changing and more people are more like you, and that they want this to be an experience as well as they walk out of there with a piercing, because that's
absolutely,
they're probably doing it to mark some sort of event in their life. A lot of them do. So you want that to kind of be cohesive with your personality, and so I think that's great, because I have seen that in the industry, and I've heard people complain about how distant and sort of aloof people in the industry can be. So when you were creating this brand, Piercing Panda, did you sit down with anyone and get advice, like, okay, what do you want to convey? Okay, this is what you should set up for your logo or what have you? Did you just come up with all of that on your own because you're just so amazing?
I did do everything on my own. So whenever I first started as an apprentice, one of the things that they made me do was obviously create like a professional persona for myself. And so I sat down and I was like, I have no idea what to call myself. Like, nothing comes to mind. And I was actually staring at a stuffed animal of a panda, and I was like, Piercing Panda. There we go. I got it.
I don't know. Pandas just look so lovable and cuddly and cute. So I thought maybe that was part of the. That might be
they are super cute and cuddly creatures. So that's how I created my name. And then whenever I was creating my own logo, I just I guess I let my creativity take hold. Like, I wanted something that was going to stand out from just like a plain panda, just like a regular picture of a panda or anything like that. And I kind of wanted it to have some bite to it. So I was like, we're gonna make it out of a paint splatter. I feel like that looks really cool. And so far people really seem to like the logo. I'm actually working on a new version of my logo currently, because I've switched shops and I feel like a rebrand is necessary. But I'm still gonna keep like my Piercing Panda. But I think some of the things that like motivated me to create the brand and just kind of do my own thing was just like, I didn't want to have someone telling me that this was how I had to market myself. I wanted to be able to market myself how I could best benefit based on the communities that I'm a part of. So my brand is really, marketed towards people of all ages. Granted, I can't pierce anyone under the age of 13, but I wanted it to be a brand that, someone that in their early teens might want to seek out to get pierced by, or someone in their like 80s would want to come and get pierced by, something that all ages, could find and connect to.
That's great. Inclusivity. So why, just as a matter of interest, why can't you not tattoo? Gosh, sorry. That's like a habit on my end. Why can't you pierce anybody under the age of 13?
So in the state of Texas, there's not really a law that says that we can't. However, whenever you are under that age, your body is still developing. You also, not everyone's kid is this way, but a lot of the times the responsibility of taking care of a piercing is going to be very low. So if we pierce someone, we want to make sure that they can be responsible and take care of their piercing the proper way, so they don't end up with any issues in the future. And that way their piercing can heal and be beautiful for the rest of their life. So with children under the age of 13, there's just so much developmental happening that it's best that they usually wait, or they seek out like a physician that will pierce them.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was probably the reason why, but you just never know. I know that in Texas, the laws are not super strict on things like that, because obviously you see babies with piercings. But there's a difference between going to a professional piercer and then going to some place in the mall, well, they'll just do it with this gun. I follow this gynecologist, OBGYN on, it sounds weird. I'm going to segue it in, I promise. She's a big advocate for different social issues and women's health and things like that. And she has 2 daughters, twins, and her one daughter really wanted a piercing, and I think she's 8. And they were like, well, let's just think about it for a little bit longer, and and kind of not put her off, but just made sure that this was something she really, really wanted to do. And the one sister wanted to do it, the other one didn't. And they ended up taking her to a professional piercer in Austin, because that's currently where she's doing hospital duty. And, you know, she put a whole thing on her Instagram story and like a reel about why she recommends going to professionals because of, and I'm going to let you speak on this a little bit more since it's your industry, but, you know, going to some of those places in the mall where you just snap them with the gun, while it might seem like super easy and fast, it can be a lot less hygienic. And so she had this whole big promotion on, you go to a professional or you get it done at the, you know, pediatrician's office, because some places will do that. So in that vein, you know, and I don't want to name names of any particular places, but we all know what we're talking about. You know, I, as a child in the 80s, got my ears pierced in one of those kinds of places with one of those guns, and then you find out later just how unsanitary that is.
I mean, I can say that when I was 7 years old, I got my ears pierced in a grocery store.
It was Walmart, I believe.
Yeah.
With your grandmother and your aunt.
Yeah. And so I actually ended up having to get my ears re-pierced later in life because of that. So yeah, I don't understand how people can take their children to those kinds of places where it's not being done by a professional like yourself.
So for you guys, you have like an industry standard in terms of like sterilization and single use,
absolutely,
you know, things, or if they're not single use, they get autoclaved and sterilized properly.
Absolutely.
So for anybody who might not know, why don't you kind of walk us through just how sanitary and precise this whole process has to be?
So, as I said earlier, one of the first things that I do when I come into work is I clean everything down. We actually use a hospital-grade disinfectant called Maticide, and it kills just about every type of bloodborne pathogen known to man. So we spray our table and our mayo tray down in between each client, any surfaces that we touch and things like that. That way, every surface that I touch and that my clients touch is clean and sterile. Now, as far as, well, clean and disinfected, not sterile, because it hasn't been introduced into a heat source or anything like that.
Right.
As far as like all of our needles, all of the needles that we use in shop are single-use needles. Okay. That means they come in a sterilized package. Once they are broken open, they are used on one client, and they are put in a secure biohazard bin that we cannot re-access. It's really important that whenever you're getting a piercing, you are paying attention to what the piercer itself is doing. If you don't see them take that needle out of that package, ask them, hey, can I watch you open another needle, please? Because that is the most important thing. The needle is where 98% of bloodborne pathogen transfer can happen. The other portion is our tools. Some shops use disposable tools. We at my shop prefer to use re-sterilizable tools, something that's made out of a stainless steel or a titanium, and we put them through a very strenuous process when we clean them. They're sprayed down and inserted into something called a ultrasonic, and the ultrasonic is heated to a certain temperature. We use a chemical in that ultrasonic to break down any blood enzymes or tissue enzymes, and they're ran in that ultrasonic for about 30 minutes. After that, we rinse them off really good with some water, and then we actually scrub them down by hand with our Maticide solution. And then after we scrub them, we package them and we stick them in an autoclave that actually sterilizes the metal using heat and steam, and we date and sign them. That way we know each individual tool that we use is clean and sterile for the next client that sits down in our chair.
Yeah, and it's a lengthy process because, you know, what you're talking about, you put them in the ultrasonic for 30 minutes and then the scrub down and then the autoclave. I mean, that can take half a day, you know, depending
Absolutely.
on what your cycle is for that particular set of tools. So, you know, it's a lot. You got to have multiple things because, you know, obviously if you have multiple clients, you're going to have time to sterilize in between. So you have to have a pretty big supply. And that kind of leads into my next question, because I know that the industry can kind of have some certain stereotypes and some not so fun parts. So what are some things that you've kind of had to, you know, some challenges you might have encountered that you've had to overcome with people's ideologies or, you know, certain stereotypes that kind of can hurt your business sometimes? Has that been a thing or not so much?
I think like the biggest thing that impacts us as piercers in general, and tattoo artists too, is the cost. Mm-hmm. Whenever I first started piercing at a shop independently after I switched out of my apprenticeship, I was charging pretty low prices. And to be honest, I'm quite ashamed of that, because a lot of people think, you know, you can spend less and still get the same quality, but that's not necessarily true. Piercers have to make a livable wage, just like tattoo artists. And the best type of tool that we have doesn't necessarily come at a cheap price, and neither does quality jewelry. So I think the biggest hurdle as a piercer that I've seen is, especially transferring from a shop to a shop, is the price increase. A lot of people are like, I don't want to pay that much for a piercing. I'm going to go down here and pay, you know, $10 for it, and it'll be just as good. And then 3 weeks later, I have them, you know, back in my chair, and their piercing is swollen and inflamed. And it's something as simple as jewelry quality at that point.
We hear that so much at the tattoo shop too. We really do.
You get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for.
You do. You really get what you pay for.
If you're paying for a really like low price, they may think they're getting a good deal, and then they have to go and get it fixed later, and ultimately they end up spending more money than if they had just spent the cost up front. So yeah, I totally hear that.
Well, and two,
so there's one.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
There's one instance that, like, whenever I switched to this shop, there's one instance that really like drilled it into the back of my brain. Like, the cost of the piercing doesn't necessarily, you know, guarantee that the jewelry is going to be quality if it's something that's lower in cost. There was this young girl, she was about 5 or 6 years old, and mom and dad had taken her to a piercing studio and got her ears pierced. And, you know, the shop said that, you know, this is implant grade titanium earrings that we used on her. They're the best quality metal you can find. And here's this little girl is sitting in my chair 4 or 5 days after having her ears pierced. And her ear was so swollen, and it had eaten the earring entirely. And it took me about 45 minutes to actually get the earring out of the young girl's ear. And I felt so bad, but like, as a piercer, when you see someone in pain like that, the only thing you can do is help. You know, you don't want them to have to walk away with it. So I grabbed some hemostats, and I very gently, as easiest as I could, pulled the back off of the earring and got it out of the little girl's ear. But the earring that I pulled out of her ear, in fact, was not titanium. And because it was so far embedded in her ear, and, you know, blood has enzymes that breaks down certain materials, the earring had started to rust. So ultimately she couldn't put the earring back in. So that situation right there, like, I mean, every time I see someone come in with a piercing that they got done, God forbid, not at a tattoo shop, and that's the thing that I see in the back of my head. And I'm like, I can't believe that. Like, always research your piercer, always research what it is they're doing, how they were taught, what they're using, because instances like that happen every single day.
Listeners can't see us, but we are full body cringing right now. This is horrifying.
That poor little girl. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, when you're researching, or whenever you're interested in getting a piercing, research, and don't ever let the cost of something scare you away, because that cost, I don't want to say guarantees quality, but it can be a hint at the quality of work you're going to receive and the quality of jewelry you're going to receive, without a doubt.
Doing just a little bit of research ahead of time typically can prepare you, you know, and going to a place that has good reviews, and that the artists are, you know, highly rated, and all those things are very important. And then you bring up the thing about, you know, the product needing to be a good quality. Megan is actually allergic to most metals, so she has to, she can only wear.
I think I remember that.
She can only wear gold,
right?
Yeah. So, and, you know, some places will say it's something, and you buy it, and then that's not what it is. So, you know, and especially when you're young, you know, the story you just told, like, she could have had a deformity from that, you know?
Or even died if she had gotten an infection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you got to be very, you know, it's not just this willy-nilly thing you can just run in. And yes, people do just walk in and, I want a piercing, and that's fine. But sometimes you probably, I would say most, unless you know for a fact and you've been in that place before, researching and doing your due diligence can help you save money in the long run. Because while you may have to pay up front for a good quality artist and jewelry, you're not going to have to pay for doctor's visits and to fix it up later if something terrible goes wrong. So I think that sometimes people tend to think, like you just said, cheaper's cheaper, and that's not always the case. And when it comes to stuff like that, especially something when you're going to modify your body like that, you probably want the highest quality you can get.
You wouldn't pay for the cheapest plastic surgeon. Like, you
wouldn't.
People have to start thinking about it in that way. Like, with your hair, you can get the cheapest haircut, and even if it looks terrible, it'll grow back. But with other forms of body modification, it is so important. And I honestly wish that this was more educated in schools about, hey, if you're going to modify your body, here are the steps that you need to go about looking into to make sure that you're
the really
safe.
Cool thing about the piercing industry is I am not an APP certified piercer by any means, but I do take online classes that are offered by APP. And anytime you want to get a piercing, APP gives you some great resources. They have aftercare online. They offer other services such as education and things like that. So as someone that, strives to be an APP member one day, because right now I'm definitely not at that level, seeing something like what they're doing is really, really awesome, because that is the simplest way for most people to educate themselves, is to utilize the tools that those guys offer. And some of those tools are offered for free. And we actually have a few APP certified piercers here in Houston.
For anyone who is curious, you can go to safepiercing.org or look up the Association of Professional Piercers, APP. So if anybody wants to look into that.
I feel like, too, having that kind of certification or taking those classes kind of also legitimizes you. Like, I didn't just, fall into this and, fun. This is you're taking this career seriously, and you're furthering your education, and you're trying to keep your clients safe because you want them to be repeat clients, hopefully.
Absolutely.
So you want them to have a good experience. Well, while we've been talking about some negative bummer things, let's change gears just a tad and tell us what your what one of your fun memories is of being a piercer, something that really stands out to you that says, this is why I do what I do. This is why I continue to forge, a path forward.
So this was a piercing that I actually did at the shop I worked at before I moved to BioLab. And I can't remember the young lady's name, but she came in and she had a pair of earrings, and she brought all of her paperwork with her to show me that they were real and everything. So I was like, you know what? The posts are long enough and everything. Give me 2 hours. Let me get these sterilized for you. Let me get them in the autoclave. That way I can pierce you with them. And I didn't really know the story behind the earrings. The young lady was in her early 40s. And this is the first piercing she was ever going to get. And it was on her earlobes. And I pierced her. She got to wear the earrings that she brought in. And then she got up and she took a look in the mirror and she started crying. And I was like, what's wrong? And she was like, my mom gave me those earrings before she passed away. Aww. And that was 6 years ago. And I never wore them because my ears weren't pierced and I was too scared to do it. And as soon as that happened, I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is definitely it.
That's beautiful.
People, hairdressers and tattoo artists and piercers, we all have a similar talent, and that talent is changing people's lives, because we never know what the person sitting in our chair is going through on a day-to-day basis. We don't know what struggles they're going through, what hardships they're experiencing. So when they sit down, it's important that we take care of who's in our chair, because it could end up with a situation like that, or it could be, I'm getting this piercing because my best friend got it, or I'm getting this piercing because my mom always wanted me to have it, or things like that. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. I like that. That's a great story. I just had a stroke and my thought just went out of my head.
You want me to do it?
No, I had a follow. Oh, I remember. Okay. Sorry. It's not on my notes here. It's just something I was thinking as you were talking. What are some, as a piercer, if you could have a client come in, like the perfect client, what are some do's and don'ts that you would want your clients to already know coming in if we lived in a perfect utopia?
So some do's that I would like is that if you don't know what you want, have pictures of what it is that you like.
Okay.
That way, when we have our first initial conversation and contact, we can talk about the piercings you do like and the piercings you don't like, and we can curate an ear based on what you like. A big don't is don't come in with the idea, at least for me, that you're going to get more than 3 piercings at a time. And also don't come in and be one of those people that like moves away from me every time I say sit still, because you're putting yourself at risk and you're putting me at risk, because I am holding a sharp object. And by you moving or moving my hand away, you're creating a dangerous situation where I might accidentally stab you or myself or both of us at the same time, God forbid.
Yeah.
So that would be a big do and a big don't. And then do come in prepared to take care of your piercing every day for the next at least 3 months.
Yeah.
It's a big commitment.
People think it heals just really
commitment.
fast, and it doesn't typically. I mean, your body, it takes time. So, yeah, it's not just
having a piercing is just like having college preparatory homework. You have to do it every night. You have to do it strenuously, and you have to make sure you do it properly.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. In being in this world and being in this industry, has there been anything that it's taught you that has made you see something about yourself that you didn't realize was there, or some other lesson that has helped you kind of go, oh, okay.
Absolutely. That I am currently capable of doing anything that I set my mind to.
I love that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I absolutely love hearing that from guests, because that is, I think that running your own brand or running your own business is a huge confidence boost, because it's not something that everybody can do.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Do it, successfully.
Yeah.
Or have some fulfillment from it, so. And two, doing something like that where you get to help someone change themselves, I feel like there's a little bit of an adrenaline rush that kind of comes with it.
There is.
Where you're like, yeah, I helped this person look the way they want it or whatever, and I feel like there's some of that too. It's self-serving in a way, but at the same time you're,
it is
fulfilling other people's wishes. So that's great.
Absolutely.
What advice would you have for anyone maybe wanting to get into your industry? What resources to tap and different things that maybe we haven't already covered that you would give out to those, or just anybody kind of trying to build their own brand, and general advice?
So as far as people who are wanting to become piercers, safepiercing.org is a huge tool. Okay. Piercing forums on Facebook where the moderators and the admins are actual body piercers. Most of the admins and moderators of those pages are APP certified piercers from around the globe. Another thing would be, don't get discouraged if you hear a no after no after no. Rome wasn't built in a day. Your empire is not going to be built in a day either. Do not ever let a no tear you down. Just keep trying and trying and trying, and get back up every time you fall down, because one day you're going to get back up and you're going to stay up. So just keep trying. As far as people who are building their own brand, it's hard.
It really
Especially
is.
Nowadays, it's hard. But keep going and just do think outside of the box. Always think outside of the box. One of the big outside of the box moments for me was, I'm a body piercer. People don't need to know what I do for fun. But it was whenever I started doing these events with like Snap to Official, which is one of the K-pop event vendors here in Houston, my following actually grew, because at that moment, I wasn't just reaching the people who were interested in piercings. I was reaching the people who were interested in Korean boy bands, which I love. So like bringing what I do into what I love took me from 796 followers to almost 3,000 followers in like a week.
Wow.
And it was just me, like, I was doing different events. I was promoting with Eve Pink. I was doing giveaways. So if there's something that you love that doesn't really necessarily relate to what you're doing, try to make what you do for work and what you love in life correspond with one another, and the possibilities of your company growing, I think, would be endless.
I think we're also too past the point in society where, there's this very severe corporate image type thing that or a very severe business way you have to be. And I feel like the people that are the most successful are the ones that are super authentic and are themselves, and they share even a small portion of that with their followers. You don't have to give the whole kit and caboodle away. You don't have to give your whole life story, but having that shared love of K-pop with your fans, opened you up to a whole different market of people that might not have been looking for that. And I feel like that's fantastic advice. Maybe sometimes
there are like I have two other piercers that work with me, Aaron and Ben, and I love both of them so much. They've taught me so much information that I didn't think I would ever need. Aaron likes to talk about the music he listens to with his clients. Whenever he used to be younger, he would skateboard and stuff like that. Ben likes to talk about his kiddos. He likes to talk about his artwork and his photography. And then there's Sherry, who's our front desk girl. She really loves like 50s pinup, so she always comes to work like dressed up like this cute little pinup girl.
That's
and
awesome.
Then there's me, like you'll hear me in the background like singing out really loud or like making weird noises. Like we all have our own different personalities, but we're able to bring them into what we do for a living, and I think that's what makes us successful and what makes our job so much fun.
For sure.
Yeah, I like that. What does the future hold for you? Is there any big plans? I mean, you said something about a bit of a redesign for your brand, but is there anything else you want to share?
At the moment right now, the only thing I can see in the future is just growing and getting better. I think, and I'm hoping that I will be with BioLab for many years to come. The company itself already has a really great reputation, and I think Ben and Aaron have a lot to offer me being as young as I am in this industry. So hopefully in the next few years, I will just be a much better piercer than I am right now. And maybe one day I'll be good enough to actually have guest artist spots whenever I travel across the U.S. to go see like BTS or something like that. And that, I think that would be my ultimate goal, is to get better, do better, and maybe be a guest artist someday.
Awesome.
Somewhere.
Can we expect to see you, once the pandemic has mostly calmed down and most people in the world are vaccinated, can we expect to see you at tattoo and piercing conventions?
Yes, I've actually never been to a convention before, so like I am pumped and ready. Like Ben and I have already talked about it. I'm like, Ben, I've never been to a convention before. He was like, are you serious? I was like, yeah, I've never been. Like,
they're a lot of fun.
I was afraid. I know, that's why I'm so excited. I've been like getting pumped up. Like one of the APT board members, AJ Goldman, was talking to me not long ago. I had a couple of questions on a form, and he was kind enough to answer and respond to me. And I was chatting with him, and he was like, have you ever been to APT conference? I was like, nope. He goes, oh boy. I was like, what? And he was like, you're in for a treat. And I was like, I'm already excited because I've heard so many good things about it, and all of the education tools that are there come together in one spot from all over the world. And I'm just like, I can't wait. It's like a kid going into a candy shop. Like, I can't wait. I'm going to try everything.
That's
awesome.
We're looking forward to seeing you grow and seeing what you're doing in the future, Alexis.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the internet, whether you have a website or your social media accounts, and that way they can go and maybe make an appointment with you.
So I don't have a website, but I do have an Instagram and a Facebook. Instagram is probably the easiest way to reach me. My Instagram handle is Piercing Panda HTX. It's a little bitty logo of a paint splattered panda, and I think the last picture I posted was of someone's belly button piercing. All of my contact information is listed there. However, as far as making appointments right now, because of COVID and the restrictions that we have set forth, we're not doing appointment-based clients. We're only doing walk-ins. So whenever you get to BioLab, there's a QR code on our front door. You'll open your camera, you'll point it at the QR code, and there's going to be a little drop down that happens. You'll click the drop down, and it's going to give you a menu of items to select from, and that'll put you in line for waiting, and you'll return to your vehicle to wait.
Okay.
And then we'll call you in. And then once you're called in, if you want me to pierce you, you can request me at the front desk with either Sherry or Gloria. And then we'll pierce you that way. That way we can kind of limit the traffic of how many people are in our shop. And it also allows us to take the temperature of each person that comes in and have them fill out a COVID questionnaire.
That's super cool. Love to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, the first aid of defense is to being on the offense, so I think that's great.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, guys, I hope y'all enjoyed this very interesting interview with a different industry we've never had on before. And like we said, if you want to get in touch with Alexis, you just heard all of the places to get in touch with her. And Alexis, thanks so much for jumping on and talking with us today. I've enjoyed this little interview, and I hope everybody else did too.
Thanks, you for having me.
All right, we'll catch you guys next time. Do you have a story to tell? We want to hear it. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast and share your story, contact us on our website at PaynePoints.com or any of the social media linked on our website. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We'd appreciate a review, a like, or a comment to let us know what you think. You can find all of our podcasts linked on our website under the podcast tab. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we want to wish everybody a wonderful day.